Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one point?
Yeah.
We know we are operating under a 5-minute rule, but you've given some latitude, for example, to the last senator, and I'm not objecting to it.
What are you saying?
I'm saying the time to speak has been 5 minutes established. We've gone over that as a convenience to our colleagues, and I hope we'll continue that.
Okay.
In 2018, Mr. Bove, a group of federal criminal defense attorneys and former SDNY prosecutors in Manhattan were so alarmed by your pattern of unethical conduct that they wrote your supervisors at SDNY to warn them about you. I'd like to enter into the record a letter that I sent to Acting U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton of SDNY requesting more information about any internal or external complaints about you as a prosecutor. The letter contains the full text of that 2018 email from lawyers in which they describe you, and I'm quoting here, they describe you as, quote, vindictive, always looking for leverage and power, a prosecutor version of a drunk driver, completely reckless and out of control, quote, needing adult supervision. One attorney said that you, whatever due justice is supposed to mean, it doesn't apply to Bove. A former federal prosecutor who later litigated against you said what Mr. Bove enjoyed most as a prosecutor was wielding power, a quality they described as the single worst possible trait for a public servant. Now, I read these because they're important, that these complaints are not an attempt to derail your nomination. This is from 2018, person after person. These complaints come from attorneys who practiced in federal court, some former federal prosecutors, warning a U.S. attorney's office that one of their prosecutors was, quote, a real recurring problem, and that you were not representing the office in a way that they thought the office would want it represented. Your conduct was so beyond the pale back in 2018 that they wrote your supervisors to say you were a liability for the office. I think this is important because it shows a pattern of behavior. The allegations align with reports about your abuse of power now at the DOJ. I want to follow up in this pattern with what Senator Durbin's questions about the mandatory Teams meeting you scheduled for all remaining public integrity section attorneys on February 14th, 2025. We already know that you're refusing to tell this committee whether you talked to Stephen Miller or others at the White House. All the chiefs and supervisors had resigned at this point, so all of the remaining and available attorneys were line attorneys in that meeting. Is that correct?
Welcome back to the Constitution Corner, Patriots. If you care about the rule of law, you need to like, subscribe, and ring that bell now, because what we're about to unpack from that Senate hearing is a full-blown warning flag about the Department of Justice. In that exchange, senators dug into allegations from 2018, when lawyers and ex-federal prosecutors warned BDNY's leadership that Mr. Bove was, and I quote, vindictive, always looking for leverage and power, a prosecutor version of a drunk driver, reckless and out of control, requiring adult supervision. And they weren't whispering, it was a formal letter to then U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton, flagging Bove as a liability. That wasn't partisan talking pointing, it was a red flag raised by colleagues in the same trenches, calling out a pattern of unethical, power-hungry behavior.
Approximately 20 attorneys were on the team's call.
I do hope, Senator, that at some point I'll have an opportunity.
You were trying to find 2 attorneys to sign a motion to dismiss the Adams case without prejudice. Is that correct?
Yes.
During the meeting, you told attorneys that it is their job to implement the president's agenda and that they have to follow orders from the president and that there's no room for dissent in the chain of command. Is that correct?
No.
You told them that they had 1 hour to find 2 attorneys to sign the motion. They weren't allowed to ask questions. Is that correct?
No.
You started the meeting by emphasizing to the line attorneys that Danielle Sasson and Hagan Scott had failed to follow orders and that Ms. Sasson was going to be reassigned before she resigned, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the last part of that question.
I will state again. You started the meeting by emphasizing to the line attorneys that Danielle Sasson and Hagan Scott had failed to follow orders and that Ms. Sasson was going to be reassigned before she resigned. Is that correct?
No.
Okay. You also told them that whoever signed the motion would, quote, emerge as the new leaders, end quote, of the public integrity section for doing so, correct?
I don't recall saying that.
So you don't know if you said that or not?
I don't recall saying that.
Edward Sullivan volunteered to sign the motion. As promised, Sullivan was promoted to acting chief of the public integrity section for dismissing that case. Is that correct?
No.
So you are saying that as the leader of the DOJ, you don't know who is in charge of public integrity?
No, I'm saying that the causal relationship that you implied in your question is not accurate.
Okay. We have you on the record on all of those points. You worked on January 6th cases while a prosecutor at the SDNY, correct?
A supervisor, yes.
An FBI agent described you as treating the January 6th cases as a priority when you were prosecuting those cases. But then you fired dozens of prosecutors and 8 senior FBI officials working on the case. Is that correct?
No.
So, Mr. Bove, I am hoping that more evidence is going to come out that showed that you lied before this committee. And I'm wondering where the lines are for you. What's the line in the sand when you wield awesome power of government? What is that line for you? Because clearly lying to a court isn't a red line. Referring to follow court or refusing to follow court orders isn't a line. Doxing judges and government officials isn't a red line. Intimidating attorneys you supervise into doing things they believe is unethical is not a line. So what's your red line? I really wonder. What could the president ask you to do that you wouldn't do? What wouldn't you do to win? A judge has to uphold core values and principles: independence, impartiality, integrity, diligence. A judge must be free from undue influence. A judge must decide cases fairly without prejudice or favor. A judge must ensure that anyone who appears before them in court will get a fair shake.
Thank you, Mr.
Everything
Booker.
we're hearing you say makes me believe that you're incapable of that. The pattern didn't just begin when you were nominated by this president. Peers of yours, prosecutors, attorneys who served with you, and judges in your past year have again and again cited you as someone who is not capable or qualified of doing this job in which you're nominated for. Thank you,
Ms.
Madam
Britt.
Chair.
Mr. Bove, thank you so much for being here.
Cut to 2025. Mr. Boy, as a senior DOJ official, is alleged to have held a mandatory Teams call forcing line attorneys to dismiss the Adams case, ostensibly at the president's direction. Reportedly, he told them to follow orders, no dissent allowed, and gave them just 1 hour. He allegedly threatened reassignment for those who resisted, then promptly promoted someone who volunteered. When pushed, his every response was a no recall or not accurate. Not denials but fog. We also learned he took charge of January 6 prosecutions, then allegedly fired dozens of prosecutors and 8 senior FBI agents working the case. He admitted his job is to serve the president's agenda. So where's the line? Lying to a court, apparently not a red line. Ignoring court orders, still okay. Doxing judges, intimidating his own attorneys, no big deal. So what would disqualify you, Mr. Boy? Senators hit it hard. A judge must be impartial, independent, diligent. But everything we've heard paints a different picture. One of a senior official lacking those qualities. Former colleagues and federal judges have consistently called into question his integrity, ethics, and suitability for high office. From a patriot's perspective, this isn't partisan theater. This is America's system of justice. It can't survive if officials treat it like a chessboard. If the DOJ can weaponize prosecutions, push around attorneys, and ignore checks and balances, then we're watching the beginnings of bureaucratic tyranny. What I want to see is transparency. Release the emails, the call logs, the notes. Let evidence speak. Let witnesses come forward. If wrongdoing occurred, hold people accountable regardless of title or political affiliation. We have to protect the DOJ from becoming a political enforcement arm, not uphold it as the impartial defender of law and liberty. If you agree that government power must bow to law, not subvert it, share this video far and wide. Call your senators. Demand proof. Call for a full release of records. Because silence and stonewashing are the cover for misconduct, and we patriots won't let it happen on our watch. Thank you for standing with the Constitution. Be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Stay vigilant. Stay free. We are the Constitution Corner, where Americans' root guides its future. Until next time, stand strong, speak truth, and may God bless the United States of America.